a.m. today in the center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Well, I've done it before, but we're going to do it again. We're going to talk about socialism. Every time elections roll around, I get a little rattled and I'm like, oh, the world's ending. World is ending. We're all going to die. And you know how it is. So here's, we're not going to plug parties one way or the other. Now, some of you secretly in your heart of hearts, you're going to be like, well, if he doesn't like socialism, he's going to talk bad about Kamala Harris. But Kevin has some things to say about Donald Trump in regards to socialism and Republicans in general. So maybe keep an open mind and we'll see where we end up. It's a broad spectrum. If you do appreciate Kevin's enthusiasm, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you have things to say about how you think we're both dumb, they used to call us all kinds of horrible things in the comments, Kevin. I would encourage that. I would recommend no profanity, but I would say go for it in the comments. You want to say that Kevin's ugly? I'm down. As many comments as you want to put, I'm down. But with that, so there is a bunch of stuff going on, and we really are heading down a road of government control where they just seem to take more and more power, both on the conservative side and the left-leaning side. First, Kevin, I know you're big on definitions. Let's break down what is socialism, and maybe we even kind of socialism, capitalism, and communism, and where that distinction is.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's obviously a specific definition, but I would consider socialism public control of government control of business and the means of production.
So I think that's 100%. So in the definitions I looked up, the big thing was socialism is control over essential business. And then other stuff kind of like had varying degrees of government influence. We'll say that. And so it was basically, a lot of that ends up with like the things that concern me are like you end up having price controls. You have how much production can be, implemented, that kind of thing. That kind of stuff typically comes from socialism. Kevin, you would agree with that statement?
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think it's important before we get started to talk about the difference between socialism and communism.
Okay.
So communism is basically socialism, but the people that work at the factory are their own little, own little group. And,
right. Now,
and each person is elected from the workers to dictate how the factory runs and that sort of thing. So there's differences, but it's very similar.
You might reflect on the 21st Century Motor Company and Atlas Shrugged, but you won't. Don't worry about it if you don't read books. It's okay. So here's the thing. Communism. Well, one of the things I didn't touch on. Typically with socialism, you still kind of have private ownership of stuff in your own life. I don't mean private ownership of your business, but you would typically like own your house. You would have your own food, your own stuff. You would still go to the store with money and buy stuff. Whereas communism, it's supposed to be more pretty much straight owned by the collective, right? Like you don't really own anything. And in that you just kind of are given what you need. And that's weird. So the idea, a lot of the definitions I read, communism in the past has never been achieved in its true form by a big government, right? It might be achieved on a small like compound that you have. You might have that may have
and there's actually a long history of those small communist communes in the United States. you
to
know,
be honest,
historically and even today.
Even the family unit is kind of like that, right? Like if you take
Right.
care of your baby and you give it food, even though it doesn't do anything, or
Yeah, get a fucking job, baby. Jesus.
still, hey, he gets health care and, whatever, then that's in a way communism, right? I mean, that's at the small unit and that works, right? Because you
Right.
all care and love and whatever. What's typically happened with communism has been we get a dictator.
Right. Right.
And that's like, well, I have to be in charge and organized, but don't worry, I care about you and I'm going to do the right thing for all of you. And I'm going to rule with an iron fist. But somehow some of us, there's that book, Animal Farm, that kind of breaks it down. And Animal Farm, they always used to say, well, some of us are more equal than others.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. But that's so anyway, now that we got the ugly little discussions out of the way and kind of what we're talking about, why would I be so brash as to say that America is heading down that road, right? That's what you're all asking. You're like, Chuck, we all love freedom and whatever. Well, these are the things that are starting to concern me, and because I feel like it's not really true. That we maybe don't all love freedom. Me and Kevin love freedom. Kevin, you love freedom?
Absolute
And a little
freedom.
Yeah.
A little too far.
Yeah, we could use the word anarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one road. I mean, I don't think by true definition, Kevin really fits in a true anarchy, but he's a lot closer than you might want to think. So with that, the things like that are concerning me is I'm seeing Kamala saying things like, we don't need equal out, or we don't need to be equal in America. We need to have equal equity. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Well, apparently equal equity means not only do we all, she says equality, we all start at the same point. Okay. Equal equity means we all end at the same point. That's not my interpretation of the word equity. That's her interpretation of the word equity. And you can look that up. You look that up. She's saying it all day long. I decided I need to start getting away from playing all these clips of these stupid politicians, because it's just dumb and I don't like them. And we're just going to go with my words. All right. Equal equity. Trust me, you don't like it, look it up. She said it. Kevin, thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's probably the stupidest fucking thing I ever heard in my life. One, I would say that the most important thing that we can do, the best thing we can do, is have everybody starting at the same point. That's what we should focus on. That's it. We should all have the same opportunities.
Well, but Kevin, what if you want the best for your kids and you work really hard to leave them nice things?
Yeah, then that works. That works. If you're a lazy piece of shit and you want the best things for your kids, then you're just a fucking asshole that wants more than they deserve.
Okay. All right. I see where you're going with that. So these are the things that, now you're saying, well, Chuck, I don't it into our lives. Okay, let's talk about it. So some of the things that concern me, well, we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about schools. We're going to talk about taxes. Let's start with taxes. Taxes seem to be everybody's biggest fear. There's a tax bill that was proposed under Biden, and Kamala is saying, if we, start things, this is what I want to do. Basically, it takes the corporate tax rate, which is currently 21%. Now, it was 28% prior to Trump coming in, and about 2 years in, he got it changed to 21%. She wants to bring that back to 28%. Now, you're saying, well, Chuck, why does that matter? I don't care about corporations. I mean, they pay those taxes, not me. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's not how a business model typically works. The way a business model works is, it's funny, it really came out when oil prices went up and they were talking about greedy oil companies. But they basically said, we need to make this much profit when they write their model, right? So I know Exxon, the big example was ExxonMobil said, we make 10% profit. So if gas is selling for $1 a gallon, they're getting 10 cents a gallon, right? You know, in the whole scheme of things. But if gas is selling for $4 a gallon, they're getting 40 cents a gallon. So in a way, the people are getting screwed, and those evil corporations are getting record profits. And that's what they always, pushed.
Well, as a corporation, you have an obligation to the stakeholders to have record profits every single year. It always has to increase.
The law says every decision you make, according to what is it? The Federal Trade Commission, FTC, sounds right.
Yeah, they're involved with that.
They say that you have to act in the best interest of your shareholders, or you're defrauding people. So you're not acting in the best interest of the environment, you're acting in the best
or your
interest
customers or anybody.
Bottom line, you have to, by law, make the decisions that. Now that sounds like evil capitalism. Well, no, because that's government controls over a business. Right. Capitalism says you can have a company and do whatever you want and
make as much or as little as you want.
Right. That's your call. You do you. That's the beauty of it. So no problem. Anyway, a little off task there. But the thing is, that corporate tax rate, it's not going to be the company that's paying it. They're going to pass that cost on to the customer, or they're going to pass it on to, we're going to have less employees and do more with less. Hey, you guys, now you can do your job and Johnny's job. Oh, that kind of sucks for me, because now we're still going to get that profit.
Before.
A lot
they
of those,
fire somebody, lay somebody off, and that now you have 2 jobs.
Yeah, you have 2 jobs. It's kind of like a promotion, but we're not going to give you more money. It's just going to we'll call you something more important. We'll be like, now you're Kevin Plus instead of just Kevin.
Yeah, I've gotten those promotions too, where I got an increase in responsibility and a new title, but still got paid the same amount of money.
Yeah. All right. So that's number 1. Next, they want to increase capital gains taxes. Now that's when you make lots of money in the stock market and you sell all your stocks and you're like, woohoo, I'm rich. They want to tax you at 44.6%. That's pretty significant, I got to say. That's a good kick in the nuts, is what I would say to that one. The deal is with that is you have 1 year and you lose your ass, right? The market just collapses like it did about a month ago. And it's come back up. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm just saying about a month ago, we took a big hit, right? And it went down like 8%. If you got scared and were like, oh, and you're a bad investor, you're like, oh God, everything's falling. The sky is falling. Sell everything. And you sold everything and you lost 50% of your money. You know how much the government's giving you? None of it. They ain't giving you nothing. Yeah. So that's kind of how that works. But then the next year, now in the same year, really every time you sell it, you can like offset your sales and gains in a year and it averages out. But the bottom line is you never get paid for taking a risk. The risk is all on you. That's the bottom line. And that's all I really need to say about that. So the next one, and this is where I feel like they're deliberately trying to destroy the country. You guys have heard this, you will own nothing and you'll like it kind of thing. That mantra going around. This to me fits into that mold completely. And I could be wrong. I mean, my interpretation could be off, but you guys make your own decision. So bottom line is they want to charge you 25% tax on unrealized capital gains. And a lot of you might be like, well, Chuck, I don't even know what unrealized means. Well, when you realize it is when you sell it. When it's unrealized just means you have it, right? So here's the example everybody's using, and it's a good one. So I'll go with it. If you buy a house and you pay $120,000, A lot of us probably are in a house right now that we paid less than what it's worth today.
Right.
A lot of that is actually because of interest and different things, and inflation. But bottom line is, you buy a house for $120,000. That house in this year goes up to $220,000. You have $100,000 in unrealized capital gains. And you're like, but Chuck, I didn't sell my house. I'm still here. And I don't have that money. That's just like what Zillow says. It doesn't mean anything. And I might not sell my house for 5 years, and I have no idea what my house will be worth in 5 years. That's true. But you gained all that value in this year. They want to tax you at 25% on that. So that means out of that 100,000 profit that you did not get, you have to give the government $25,000. Now, let's go even further and say your house is worth $400,000. Now we're talking about $75,000 you have to pay on top of the 100,000 you already paid that you financed out over 30 years. You might have to sell your house just to pay your tax bill. And you're saying, well, that's not good, because then I would have to buy a new house, and I don't have enough money to buy a new house. And not if I have to,
not if you
lose
have
all
to
that
give
equity,
all that
right?
fucking money. Yeah.
Right. And you're starting back at zero. And to me, that's something deliberately set up to equalize people. You see where I'm going? Kevin, is that your take on that? Like to me, that seems like you're making us all at a level playing field. If you're skimming off all my wealth, how is that not equalizing the playing field?
Right. Well, I mean, the important thing is you have to be happy with being poor. Let's just get down to it. You know what I mean? As soon as the more the government controls, the less you control. And the government's supposed to be like of the people. But let's be honest, there's a different fucking class going on here. There's more than one classes, because we had mentioned this before the show. But minimum wage, federal minimum wage doesn't increase with the cost of living, right?
Not relative anyway. I mean, not direct.
So I mean, $7.25 has been minimum wage for 26 years. Campaign finance contributions, though, there's a limit on that, but that increases as cost of living goes up.
Because that only makes sense, Kevin.
So right now you can donate 57. I think I'll have to double check that. I think it's $57,000 you can donate to each politician that you want to. That's your maximum limit.
I thought it was, maybe it's 5,700, because I thought it was like 2,000 was the max to a campaign.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll have to double check that. But anyway, that increases every year based on inflation and cost of living. Congressional pay for congressmen and senators, that increases automatically every year.
But they're not more skilled or anything, right?
No, they're in that other class that I'm talking about. They don't count. They're not the same as regular people, because they're politicians.
So they're protected, because how could they lead us if they're not?
I want to make sure that they're safe financially. Yeah.
We need a good guy at the helm, somebody up there looking out for the people.
Yeah, we need one of those benevolent dictators that they're always talking about. I've never seen one, but I hear about them.
We need the fist, the benevolent one. Yeah, that one. All right. So minimum wage. All right. I like that. We don't, now that people are like, oh, capitalism, we have to do it because they won't pay. Guess what? It turns out if you have a company and nobody shows up to go to work for you, then you have to pay them more, because that's kind of how that works.
Right. I mean, you can just send it over to India and pay all those people in fucking rice, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah, but then that comes with money manipulation and the value. Maybe the reason it's better to go to India is because our dollar is so devalued that it doesn't relate.
Kevin, it doesn't relate to, we'll see.
Yeah, see? Yeah. Maybe ours isn't really worth anything either. Yeah. Anyway, moving right along. So taxes, bad. Another thing we notice is selective enforcement of laws, taxes.
Yeah. So this is the biggest, I think one of the biggest issues I have with just fucking life in general is the selective enforcement of law. Right. So if you make everything illegal and then just don't enforce those laws, it doesn't make
do you a favor
in
and not
life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't make any difference in your life if you have laws that you're not enforcing. You know what I mean? You can pass any law you enforcing, it doesn't change anything. But you can enforce it if somebody's doing something that pisses you off, right? You can decide to enforce that law. You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm charming. Maybe it's because I'm handsome. I've gotten pulled over probably 5 or 6 times where the cops just like, just get out of here, man. Just go, slow down. Don't drive so fast. I mean, maybe that's like a major problem I have in my life is always driving too fast. Maybe that's on me. Most of the time they let me go because they say, you know, he's got a luxurious beard. And, you know, according to my laws, I never my rules of living, I never break 2 laws at once. Like I don't speed if my registration is overdue, you know? That's where you get fucked. But by not giving me a ticket, they're letting me get away with all sorts of bullshit where another person that doesn't have a luxurious beard like me, they might get a ticket, right? But that implies that multiplies as you go up, right? So you can decide who you do and do not want to enforce the laws with. So I know there's a lot of talk about the death penalty for pedophiles in Texas, right? They talked about it. I think they signed that in as a law, some sort of bullshit. They haven't killed one goddamn pedophile yet. Like, can we do that? Like, I'm not opposed to that law. Like, can we do that? Nope. They ain't doing it. They're not doing it. They're just, it's fucking talk. They want to talk tough and then not actually follow through with it because that might have some blowback because that pedophile was probably a fucking priest or an upstanding member of society. There's a fucking minister that got convicted of raping a 13-year-old girl. And I can't remember the state he was in, but they gave him 6 months probation. What? That's not, I mean, is that your daughter? Yep. Your 13-year-old daughter that got raped? Because I sure as fuck wouldn't be happy with 6 months probation. But he's an upstanding citizen, so he's got different rules that apply to him.
Different rules. And I hate to say it, that's the more you get. I don't know why it is. Basically, we'll say that a corrupt government and corrupt powers are what lead to those kind of things and why people are upset. And I would just argue that socialism and communism end up to more and more government. Now, in theory, communism, we're all just getting along and there is no government, kind of, not really, but that's it. Right. There's that huge structure in place. But the more government, the more opportunity you have for corruption. And that's kind of my take on things. I know people don't want to believe that. That's my big thing with the school system. Right now, our kids are being taught whatever the government chooses kind of thing. We have they tried to make it even more so with Common Core or whatever, but that kind of didn't really pan out. But they try and have a federal kind of agenda in the school system where they can indoctrinate your kids is what I would say. They would make an argument that I'm wrong and crazy on that and I'm overreaching. There's a lot of that going on where they have their own agenda, I would say. My thoughts, right? Like Minnesota right now, they just passed, it's going into effect in July, that anybody who wants a teaching license and wants to keep their teaching license has to affirm transgenderism, and they have to be cool with, recognizing children's gender and identity. Now, to be honest, I would want my teacher to respect the parents' values. If I go into a school with my kid and I say, hey, this is Johnny and he's this, and I want you to treat him that way, I would expect a teacher to do it. And I think that needs to be recognized. But I think that goes both ways. I always worry that the system is, slanted one way or the other. They're trying to push a certain agenda.
Right.
And
Or the
things
opposite,
go
and
that
whatever
way.
it is. Yeah.
The opposite of what, might be relevant to me. The other one, Vermont. It's weird. The health department in Vermont is telling schools that they don't want schools to use the word son and daughter anymore. And they want to use just kid or child. And it feels like you're trying to detach from the family. My personal take. That's my own opinion of what I infer. Doesn't mean that's what their agenda is. I have no idea what their agenda could be otherwise. But now you're saying, well, Chuck, what does this have to do with socialism? And here's where let me break it down for you. What I'm saying is you're taking a large percentage of my paycheck to pay for the school system, especially in New York and more, your more elaborate states like that. They have a lot of money coming out of your paycheck to go for schools. In New York, I paid school taxes that were ridiculous. They were half my mortgage payment was to the schools. So, I mean, that's significant. Now, that's fine if I have control over where that money goes, but I don't. I don't have any say of what goes on in a school. And even if like I joined a school board or something, I still really don't have any say. Maybe if you're in Florida, you could burn some books or something, but otherwise, not really. The thing with that is I know I'm forced to work, but I have no control where my money goes. Now, all my kids are grown and out of school, and they're not in there right now dealing with this, but I'm still paying for all these other kids to be taught something contrary to what I believe possibly, right? And, I don't know. I'm not sitting in the classroom. I don't know what's going on there. But if you left that money in my pocket, or you said, hey, we have to take care of a culture here, and we want everyone to be educated, so we have good workers and everybody's not a hillbilly and, whatever, like those people in North Carolina, you know how it is. Yeah. And if we didn't want that to happen, we could maybe say, all right, you have to give this percentage of your paycheck towards schools. However, you could then use that to pick and choose the private school or where you want to send your kids. We'll give you that money back to go, do it. And that would then be, justified. How many neighborhoods are the poor kids go to one type of school and the rich kids go to another type of school? There is some dramatic differences in schools throughout the United States.
Right.
It's
so let's
not
say
equal. Yes.
Yeah. Let's say hypothetically, you pay school taxes in your state. It's always different. Different states have different rules about it.
Property taxes, whatever. But
exactly. We pay school taxes in New York State. Mine's $3,000 or $4,000 a year. And the cost for one student per year, going from kindergarten through 12th grade, is about $42,000 a year, which is one of the highest in the country, if it's not the highest.
By far.
So if I am a poor person, right, I can send my kid to public school. If I'm a rich person, I can send my kids to private school.
Yes.
But if I had that $42,000 that is already being invested in my kid, I should be able to spend that at any private school I want to, as long as that private school reflects the values that I appreciate as a parent.
Right.
That's not the case. And people are outraged that somebody would like imply that you should be able to spend your own child how you want to do. Whatever, dude. People complain about school taxes. Well, I don't have any kids. Well, you went to fucking school. And honestly, a bunch of stupid fucking kids isn't a benefit. You know what I mean? Like in your neighborhood is only going to make things worse. At least have some semblance of education for every child that can go whether you're rich or poor. But you should be able to spend that money how you want to spend that money. And that's called school vouchers. And people lose their shit over it. And I have no idea why. Well, you should be fixing the schools that your kids are going to anyway. No, they've been trying to do that for years. They ain't fixing shit.
Right.
You know, kids are getting dumber and dumber, and they're getting more and more confident about being stupid. That's how the fucking trends are going in this 100%. Country. Are your kids 100%. Confident? Yes. Are they stupid? Yes. That's not a great combination. But no, whatever.
You have to do the teaching on your own. And the thing is, when you're working nonstop in order to take care of your family, because you're taking care of your family as well as 12 other families, then you don't have the time to be at home raising your kids and teaching them the values that you care about. You know, everyone says, oh, well, you should be interacting with your kids at home. Yeah, good luck if you're working nonstop to put clothes on them and, you know.
Yeah, you and your wife work full time because you kind of have to. You kind of have to now. And maybe you're lucky and your wife is really good at running a business where she does daycare so she can stay at home and raise her kids along with everybody else's.
With her values. And exactly.
But good luck getting fucking paid for that, you know?
And that sounds like a great life that you've cut out for yourself, where everything is like exhausting. How do I fit, you know?
Right.
Let's give it where you can have a choice, where you work as much as you want to work. And obviously we have to work more to get more stuff, but there needs to be some kind of, you know,
there's some kind of certain point where more stuff isn't really beneficial to you or anybody else, you know?
Now, I do have to point out that when we talk about taxes, choice, your homes being taken away from you, that kind of stuff. Did I mention that buying gold and silver sounds like a really good idea? I'm just saying. When I have fat stacks of silver, not everybody needs to know about it. I'm just saying.
Capital gains, bro. It's going up in value.
Exactly. Yeah, you better put that on the report. I'm just saying. I don't know. It's a crazy world we're living in right now, and that's really what upsets me. Now, we could talk about the same thing with the healthcare system, right? Remember, it was all going to be, we had the Affordable Care Act. Kevin, is your healthcare affordable?
No.
That's not the word.
Healthcare is never going to be affordable in the United States. That's just
in the United States.
And there's way too many companies that are middlemen that are collecting your fucking money, you know? Insurance companies that are happy to take their fucking bill, their $900 a month or whatever it is, whatever astronomical price they're charging you. But then as soon as you need something, that's not covered. So you got to spend $9,000 before you get a penny from us.
We even talked about it, right? 100%. And it's so dysfunctional, right? And I feel like we had a choice in my mind, right? When the Affordable Care Act, when they were talking about it, we could have opened it up kind of as a market, because right now, before the Affordable Care Act, insurance companies would be approved to work in like 3 states, and then other ones would work in another couple states,
right?
And they would all be spread out, but it wasn't universal, right? And they were saying, hey, if we open it up, there'll be a market, you know, where you're competitive, like capitalism, we could call it. And they would compete against each other. And instead they were like, no, that's a horrible idea. That'll just increase the greed. So they were like, if you do it our way and we do this Affordable Care Act, everything will be affordable. Everything will be covered. You won't have to worry about nothing. Instead, people who had no insurance were getting fined because they couldn't afford insurance. So that was really helpful for them, right, Kevin? Where they got to, you know,
like the bank giving you the overdraft fees because you're fucking poor. So now you're
out of money. Right? That only helps. That only helps.
It's expensive being poor, man. I'll tell you.
It's not. Well,
it's a lot more expensive being poor than it is being rich.
Making minimum wage and having that job where you're washing dishes in a restaurant, or you're hustling as a waitress, or you're, you know, all these things, you're working like twice as hard as the guy who's making $60 an hour, maybe 3 times as hard.
Yeah. Like, I could tell you from personal experience, the more I've gotten paid throughout my life, the less actual work was expected out of me.
100%.
When I got minimum wage, I was moving nonstop. You get a 15-minute break, but that's it. You know what I mean?
We're paying that $15 or 13 or 5 or
there's no paid time off on those jobs, you know? There's no vacation.
Yeah, no, that's definitely how life works, you know, and it is not easy. And you have to, kind of find a way to cut it out for yourself. Now, I would also say that I feel like powers that be up there are working to kind of destroy things. And I feel like immigration has been used to, I would say, personal opinion, overwhelm the system. And because all of a sudden we're like, hey, we want to make everybody legal. We want to allow, all kinds of benefits open to people who came and overwhelmed the system. And then all of a sudden the system isn't working. And I feel like that's what happened with Obamacare, with the whole healthcare system. It was, hey, we made all these changes. Wow, it's really not working. And all of a sudden people are like, let's just have government healthcare, just be in charge completely, because I can't do it. We're ready to give all our rights of healthcare to the government because we're like, the system we have now is destroyed, but we just destroyed it.
Right.
Well, it turns out the rest of the system is being overwhelmed and money's being given out left and right. And they're like, now we need all these ridiculous taxes. Well, guess what? That's being used to destroy the system. And I hate to say it.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest damages. Yeah. One of the biggest damages in the past 4 years or past 8 years. And this is going to be controversial. I don't think a lot of people will agree with this. But Donald Trump decreased taxes, right? He significantly cut taxes. He also increased spending and added, that's called deficit spending. It's not inflation. It's not the same thing. It just causes a deficit and kicks it down the road. So increasing it by $6 trillion. And the great thing of this is you don't have to pay this back. You have to pay interest in it. This is our grandkids' problem, and fuck them. They didn't get any of the benefit from it, but they're going to have to pay the shit back. So, I mean, if you want to do long-term damage to your country, if you want to do long-term damage to your country, increase the spending and cut taxes. That's the best way to do it. If you want to fucking destroy America, that's a great long-term plan for it.
Well, Kevin, we are well on our way. I can tell you. We are well on our way.
Yeah. I fully support cutting taxes, but I also support cutting spending, and that never happens. It only increases. Year after year, increases.
How are we giving it away to everybody? We don't have it. It doesn't make any sense.
It's our grandkids' problem, Chuck. You don't understand. We just make somebody else pay for it 20 years from now.
Right. Not to put the damper on everybody, but that's the direction we're heading. And it really, who you vote for, but I always look at it as, think of how fast you want the train to go. Both trains are taking us down a bad road, but one is going a little slower. And I'll let you guys decide which one. I don't really tell people who to vote for. I know Kevin has some opinions. I have some opinions, but it's not looking good for as far as government getting smaller and spending going down. The government needs to be looking out for you, and I'm not seeing it right now. So anyway, that's what I got. I really appreciate it. You guys want to meet me in person? We're going to be at Prepper Camp coming up end of September, 26, 27, 28, I think. And you check us out there. Maybe it's 27, 28, 29, somewhere in there. Anyway, preppercamp.com. You can check out our website at preppingbadass.com. Email us questions, concerns, show ideas, things you want to hear about, things you want us to talk about, whatever. Email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com.
We do actually read the emails.
And
respond to them.
Good about it. We might take a day or two, but we're pretty good. Anyway, show ideas, whatever. So with that, I would say stay safe, and we will talk to you guys next week.